Greenland is a vast, almost entirely uninhabited and undeveloped territory that's sitting undefended in a key strategic location between the United States, Russia, and China. That's exactly where it is, right smack in the middle. Wasn't important nearly when we gave it back. You know, when we gave it back, it wasn't the same as it is now. It's not important for any other reason, you know, everyone talks about the minerals. There's so many places. There's no rare earth, no such thing as rare earth. There's rare processing, but there's so much rare earth. And to get to this rare earth, you got to go through hundreds of feet of ice. That's not the reason we need it. We need it for strategic national security and international security. This enormous unsecured island is actually part of North America, on the northern frontier of the Western Hemisphere. That's our territory. It is therefore a core national security interest of the United States of America. And in fact, it's been our policy for hundreds of years to prevent outside threats from entering our hemisphere, and we've done it very successfully. We've never been stronger than we are now. That's why American presidents have sought to purchase Greenland for nearly 2 centuries. You know, for 2 centuries they've been trying to do it. They should have kept it after World War II, but they had a different president. That's all right. People think differently. Much more necessary now than it was at that time, however. In 2019, Denmark said that they would spend over $200 million to strengthen Greenland's defenses. But as you know, they spent less than 1% of that amount. 1%. There's no sign of Denmark there.
2, 3, hey. Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, former Ambassador Carla Sands, Zack Smith Esq, Dan Steiner from Pre-Born, Erika, the future First Lady of Florida, and Jill Homan from the America First Policy Institute. Sketch comedy from Diaper Diplomacy, the Babylon Bee, and the Holderness Family. And in the spotlight, it's Mercy Me. And now from Times Square, where even the pizza rats are better at preventing shutdowns for the government than the dollar store Obama, here's Kevin.
Hey, happy weekend to you, friends. Welcome in. No adult beverage in the mug this weekend. That is nothing but herbal tea. Because it's 4 degrees outside. And when it's 4 degrees, I don't know, my system gets all messed up. So I couldn't hear out of my own head for half of this week and so forth. Got on my balance of nature. I got to tell you, that stuff works wonders. I did this sounds unbelievable. Ask me how unbelievable this sounds. Totally unbelievable. I took 20 fruits and veggie capsules at night when I was having trouble. 20 more in the morning when I got up. 10 in the middle of the day, 20 more before bedtime the next night, and within a 24-hour period, I went from, 10, 15% to 95%. So we're ready to go. But I'm just saying, I don't like 4-degree weather. I could do without that, please. Thank you. For everything that you can do to not send that my way again, I would consider it a very, very big, huge thank you. I'll owe you for good. Anyway, welcome to the weekend. We got a lot to get to. Did something kind of fun this week. See this right here? We were invited by the First Lady to come see. Yeah, First Lady Melania Trump requests the pleasure of your company at the screening of Melania. And I went and saw it. Fantastic film. Cinematography, pacing, soundtrack, score. all of it. It should be under consideration for one of the documentaries of the year, based on its quality. Based on its quality, it should be under consideration for documentary of the year for next year's Oscars. It should be. It won't be. Because for whatever reason, the people that are on that side of the divide have such a hard time with her husband that they judge her by that. It's almost like they punish her because he's successful. When she wasn't associated with him, she's successful. But why? See, it's just weird. And have we ever had a more elegant or classy First Lady? You watch this documentary, you're going to learn things about her and her life and her past that you didn't know. And it all has helped formulate who she is. Anyway, Melania, just the film so titled, big thumbs up from me. I liked it a lot. In fact, I'm probably going to take my daughter to see it because I want to put class and dignity in front of my kids at every opportunity. And I don't understand parents who don't want to. You let them watch dumb rubbish, Pac-Man or Pokemon or whatever these things are, and their brains literally start to turn into ooze. And when you have a chance to put them in front of something that is really, really excellent. For instance, during the snow shutdown, you know what we did? We rewatched Lord of the Rings. It's classic. As a family, we held discussions about some of the classic stories. One night, the bride and the boys, and they're all sitting in the living room, and they're just talking about the Odyssey, and they're talking about characters and development and all the rest of it. And I thought, this is good because they're not just like the slobs that I hung out with when I was their age. We'd all pile in to go see someone's PG-13 movie on VHS. Woo! We're such rebels. But no, it's highly recommended. All right, I want to get into something that's a little bit niche. You've noticed that there are people having trouble with the president, how he's handled Minneapolis and the whole Minnesota issue altogether. Not the majority of the country, just a few people there. But Hilary Clinton thought it would be worth it to go pen an essay for The Atlantic this week where she accused the MAGA movement of glorifying things that were not the Christian ideal. And she said, in fact, that the Christian element of the MAGA movement has twisted faith away from what is the core Christian teaching. And then as if someone asked her, so what is the core Christian teaching, according to the Gospel of Hilary? She says dignity, mercy, and compassion, right before she pushed the button to kill him. I'm kidding. Those are the arguments they use for assisted suicide. It's dignified. It'll be merciful. It'll show compassion. While you send them to eternal hell. Psh, boom. They're gone. No, Hillary. No. We have to correct the record. Because the core teaching of Jesus isn't even what you think it is. It's not how many of the poor do you feed. It's not how many of the homeless do you house. You do all of those things out of an understanding of gratitude for what happens to you in the core Christian teaching. But the core Christian teaching is not nice to humanists like Hilary Clinton. Core Christian belief at its very essence, in the very deepest part of where it's rooted in comes from, is based in the idea that you are a sinner and you cannot save yourself. Well, that's judgmental. Maybe. But Hillary, that's the core teaching. And the core teaching is that the only one who could save you is Jesus by paying the price that you deserve. Well, I'm not bad. He doesn't have to pay my price. Actually, his word says we all are. His word says we've all fallen short. His word says none of us are worthy of eternal life based on just what we do in this life. So the core Christian teaching, Hillary Clinton, is not dignity, mercy, and compassion right before you hit the button on the go to sleep forever thing. No, that's humanism. Humanism teaches that men can be essentially good, that we can rise above our circumstances, that we can do very generous things. And that might be possible on some minimal level in terms of just pure physical life. But let me just tell you that when it comes to the actual understanding of the Christian teaching, it's that you're a sinner, I'm a sinner, we're all sinners. We can't pay for our own sin. Only Jesus could. He came and did it. And all that's necessary for us to have what he offers is to accept it. Now, I don't know how any of that runs counter to what we should be doing by way of immigration, but immigration doesn't have anything to do with core Christian teaching. We're sinners. We need God. That's core Christian teaching. Kevin McCullough, huge show. Mercy Me is with us this weekend. Stay right here.
From New York, that Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's Kevin McCullough, thatkevinshow.com for everything related to it. And former Ambassador Carla Sands is back with us from the America First Policy Institute, one of the ambassadors there, doing a great job on a number of different subjects and expertise. But Carla, I have to thank you because it was you about a year ago, just before the administration came into office, I think the first time we talked about it. We were hearing Donald Trump say something about this Greenland thing, and people were like, what is that? And there's nothing serious about that. And then he goes to Davos last week and blows people away. The thoughtfulness, the intensity and intelligence behind the arguments, the importance of how it's not just going to be a protection for North America, but, not for just America proper, but Canada, Northern Europe. There's a lot of people that are going to benefit if we have the Golden Dome there. Where are we a year later after that very first conversation where you educated me so well?
We've come so far, Kevin. It's unbelievable because now we're living at Trump speed. So it's a year happening in the news every day. And I'm really excited that he's put this task in the hands of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Vice President J.D. Vance, and then his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, three guys who know how to get a deal done. And to make sure that the American people are secure, just like you said, it's part of the Golden Dome with Alaska and Greenland in our Northeast. But it's also a benefit for our NATO allies, because if Greenland, which could easily fall into the hands of an adversary, we wouldn't have freedom of navigation to even send naval vessels to their defense in a conflict, or it could interfere with our planes, war planes getting back and forth, trade as well. So there's all kinds of mischief that an adversary could get up to, an enemy, by controlling not just Greenland, the world's largest island, but also the giant seas around it.
Right.
So it's the air and sea around it, the GI-UK gap, Greenland, Iceland, and the UK. And that's really, most of that area is supposed to be protected by Denmark because they have Greenland. They used to have Iceland until they went independent in the last century. And then they also still have the Faroe Islands, which are near the Shetland Islands, so near that UK. So giant seas, and here we have a small country, Denmark, limited resources, 6 million people, an economy about the size of the state of Colorado, with no capability, but also no intention of defending Greenland and those seas.
So when he was talking about it before Davos, the international press was, who is he to take over sovereignty from someone else, blah, blah, blah. How did he do, in your opinion, in the tone, demeanor, delivery of the Davos speech? It seemed to me that there were people that wanted to talk to him almost immediately about how to start working this negotiation through. Was there significant progress made, in your opinion?
I think there was significant progress made because he said they have the framework in place, and now it's the time to put the details in. And I think that Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, was really instrumental in helping to lay the foundation or groundwork for this. But I also think there was such a huge a huge attendance by the Trump administration at Davos, that they dominated it. And we had great people like Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, talking to the elites there, the world leaders in Davos, saying, look, don't get your hair on fire. Listen to what President Trump is saying, and then sit down and negotiate. This is his opening salvo. He wrote the book, The Art of the Deal, and this is how he plays. And so there's a lot of, and I think a lot of it is probably for the internal audiences to try to get these weak European leaders to get better poll numbers in their individual countries. So there's some of that, but I think some of it is sort of an incompetence, that they don't understand diplomacy and how to get a deal done. Just one quick example is the Prime Minister of Denmark never picked up the phone for a year to talk to President Trump while he was talking about Greenland not being secure. And they've said, oh, now we're going to invest billions here and billions there to secure the Arctic. They don't have enough money. President Trump will be spending hundreds of billions of dollars to secure the United States with this Golden Dome, which is a lot like a 21st century version of Israel's Iron Dome,
right,
which protects them from enemy missiles. And it's really, I think, the grandchild of President Ronald Reagan's Star Wars.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just during Star Wars time, the technology hadn't caught up with President Reagan's dreams.
Right.
But now today, for President Trump, it has. And so this is a great moment for the United States and our allies, as long as Denmark and Greenland don't screw this up.
Now, nobody knows Denmark better than you, because that's where you were stationed, and you know the temperament and the personality of the people that are there, and even the royal family and the politicians there. Where does this sit compared to 12 months ago? In terms of, like, how is it settling with them?
Yeah, they are very upset at the United States. They have uninvited our U.S. ambassador from the American-Danish gathering, where the U.S. ambassador always does a speech about our cooperation and friendship in Rebuild, which was started a little over 100 years ago by a Danish American who made a lot of money, bought some land, and said, we're going to celebrate our friendship every year here for the 4th of July. And so he's been uninvited. So that's a very bad diplomatic, faux pas that Denmark has done. The people are upset because they don't want to lose control of Greenland. They don't want to pay for it. Okay, they can't pay to develop it or defend it, not really. And they've never tried to develop it, even though the Greenlanders would like some development. But they're upset. They don't want to lose their status as an Arctic nation. And I don't know how this deal with President Trump and NATO will go. I think it's going to be, probably complicated to get it done. But I do believe they will get it done, because Denmark
here's what I don't know that the Danish people are taking into consideration. China and Russia, neither one will be as kind as the U.S. And Putin and Xi, neither one will care half as much about the welfare of the people of Greenland or Denmark than Donald Trump. This is a guy who loves peace. He wants to protect. And Denmark will sit under the range of the Golden Dome, if I understand its capacity well. In other words, they wouldn't have to worry about a Putin being in their backyard constantly all the time anymore, because this is going to benefit them as well.
That's right. There's a lot of Chinese and Russian activity in the region. Russia, by far, has the biggest presence in the Arctic, more than 40 icebreakers. Some have missiles on them. And then they have these old Cold War bases that they've refurbished, and new bases all along their Arctic coast. If you look at a map of the world from the North Pole, you can see the gigantic scale of Russia's property. And then you look over at Greenland, and you can see that it does protect the U.S. From Russian missiles as far as warning. And one day we will have that Golden Dome protect us from them in actual fact. But China's working with a no-holds-barred military cooperation with Russia. They'll be doing Arctic exercises together this calendar year.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Times Square. Glad you're with us. Kevin McCullough, glad to be with you. That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for all things related. The story's not going anywhere. In Minneapolis this week, more problems have erupted. Obviously, the shooting of a second person by the authorities. But, you know, that's just a piece of the whole picture of what's going on there. And here to discuss some of the legal ramifications of all that's included is Zack Smith from the Heritage Foundation. Zack, a regular contributor here at That Kevin Show. Zack, it's good to see you again. I don't think... I've had a lot of opinions about this as the last several weeks have unfolded. I guess even going back past the holidays, because this is when the fraud and corruption started kind of coming to the fore. But I still pin about 85% of the problem on everything that's going on there to the elected leadership, the governor, the mayor, the words they're using to talk to the voters and the people of Minnesota, the things that they are saying while they're being very harsh with the president and saying you got to tone down your rhetoric. They're saying to their people, resist. Resisting arrest gets you in trouble. It's always a bad idea. Even if you're in the innocent, let a judge handle that. Don't try to force people's hands in the moment. But as you have seen this whole drama play out, what are your observations about where we're at?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on the show this morning, Kevin, because obviously this is a very timely and very sensitive topic. But I think you're exactly right. If you listen to the rhetoric that Minneapolis mayor has been using, if you listen to the rhetoric that Tim Walz, the Minnesota governor, has been using, it's absolutely shameful. Tim Walz at one point was saying that federal law enforcement officers shouldn't be treated as though they are law enforcement officers. You have the Minneapolis mayor essentially telling ICE to get out of the city using very vulgar, very crude language, trying to make his point. And then if you shift gears and look at the national leaders, you have national Democratic leaders like Hakeem Jeffries encouraging people to, quote, fight Trump's agenda in the street. And so whenever you use that very incendiary, very overheated rhetoric, it's no wonder that you're seeing actions like we see on the ground in Minneapolis right now.
Well, and given that that's the case, I know that there's going to be a lot of lawsuits coming. There's some that have already been filed. There's going to be some adjudications going down here. Where do you think the crossing of the line, who has made the biggest mistakes, legally speaking, in terms of where they're at? And the reason I ask that is, if you have a conflict between the state authorities, like Governor Walz, and the federal authorities and the Trump administration, and the Trump administration's case is they're saying, look, we're just enforcing the law. We're just trying to do what the law says we should be doing. And you guys are actually obstructing what we're trying to do by telling people to resist us, by not allowing your law enforcement to cooperate with us. There was a hideous case this last week of the head of the Border Patrol, the discovery of where he was staying. And so protesters went over there and damaged property and broke in and did a whole bunch of stuff, to the degree that the administration replaced the leadership that's taking charge there in Minnesota. At the end of the day, you have what appears to me to be a broken relationship between lawful authorities at different levels. And to me, it seems like someone has to say, this is not allowed and you can't do that.
Yeah, look, it's black letter law that the federal government can't commandeer state officers or officials to do the federal government's work. But by the same token, as a matter of comedy and common sense, you often see state authorities cooperating. And look, I think it's absolutely shameful when you have federal law enforcement officers being attacked, being harassed, being put in very difficult and dangerous situations, and yet you have local authorities continuing to fan the flames. Local authorities continue to tie the hands of local law enforcement officials, making it more difficult for even local officials to respond and enforce the law. So you're absolutely right. The situation in Minnesota is broken right now. Now, I think we've seen over the past few days President Trump trying to reestablish some comedy with Minnesota's governor. And keep in mind, too, that many Minnesota officials, they're not honoring ICE detainers centers, requests to turn people over who have orders for deportations. And so, again, a lot of this very dangerous, very difficult situation is being created by the local elected leaders there on the ground in Minnesota. And you're absolutely right, Kevin. The federal government does have a responsibility and a duty to enforce federal law, and state officials certainly are not free to obstruct the federal government in those efforts.
All right, Zack Smith, Heritage Foundation. Always appreciate your input. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for having me on the show.
Kevin McCullough coming back from Times Square. Don't go anywhere.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for everything related to the show. And if you want to help save a baby, click that banner at the top of the homepage, the one with the little cute person in the little pink and blue blanket, and click on that, go through, see what Pre-Born is doing this year. And I want to make a really big emphasis on this. Pre-Born has a different way of raising the money they need for operations and paying the light bill and the broadband and everything else. They have other donors that take care of that. Everything we raise here is going to go to providing ultrasounds and saving babies and loving on moms. Every penny that we raise is going to go to that means. So, and you can check them out at Charity Navigator and all the grading places, but they just have a stellar reputation. Dan Steiner is their head and founder. And Dan, I always look forward to talking to you in January. It's always a big historic month. Before Roe v. Wade was overturned, it was always like a contest of two different protests in D.C. You were going to have the pro-abortion people kind of trying to shout down the pro-life people who were just there to pray and assemble. And I think a lot of people think, well, Roe v. Wade got taken care of, so that's all behind us. Well, no. In my state, in New York, they got much more aggressive about the abortion law, and now you can have you can kill a child after they're born if it's not too long, whatever that definition is, after they come out of the mom's womb. But the point is, the need for what Pre-Born does in terms of loving moms and helping them understand what's happening inside of their body and how God made them and his purpose for them, this has not diminished. It's only gotten greater since the Roe v. Wade decision.
Yeah, it sure is. It's more difficult than ever. Over 80,000 there in your community. And they're getting abortion pills and taking that in their home through hours of bloody trauma. They're delivering their babies on their bathroom floor, Kevin. And we're reaching them online. We're standing up a telehealth system to reach them online. And
talk about that for just a second, because I don't think a lot of people, unless you are knee deep in this every day, you don't really understand this. But it's gone because the courts have kind of shut down, particularly a lot of the dangerous clinics. A lot of this has moved online, which in some ways has made it more dangerous even for the moms.
Oh, it is. It is much more difficult to stop and much more dangerous for the women because it's a do-it-yourself, a DIY abortion is what it is. So millennials, Gen Zs, alphas, where they live, they're digital natives on the internet. They go on the internet where they get their entertainment, where they have their friends, where they have their package delivered from Amazon, where they get their abortion pill now delivered to their home through hours of trauma and blood. They deliver this baby on their bathroom floor. We had a girl, Kevin, in Texas that called us a couple months ago and just hysterical, saying, I just delivered my baby on my bathroom floor. His skin is kind of clear. I can see his heart beating. What do I do? This is what the Democrats call healthcare. It's absurd. And this is what we're trying to stop through our telehealth system, reaching them. So the journey is we stand up an ad online, and then we have them call to our call center when they click on our ad, and then we have them talk to a nurse, and then we schedule an appointment for them and give them an ultrasound. And so that's the journey now that Pre-Born is doing across the nation. We're standing.
Have you seen an increase in post-abortion circumstances because of that process, or are we getting to them early enough, or both?
Well, we know that yes, they're coming into our clinics just distraught because before chemical abortion, they go to an abortion clinic and they wouldn't see their baby that was killed.
Right.
But now they have to dispose of the body.
Can't avoid that now.
No. And so it's horrific. We know that 11%, 10.8% of all women that take the abortion pill, this is statistically proven, end up in a severe hospitalization. And why is that? It's because there's no doctor supervising. Maybe they have an ectopic pregnancy. Maybe they take a pill and tell the pill provider that they're at 14 weeks and they're 21 weeks. And it's only supposed to be effective up until 10 weeks, but they'll prescribe it. We had a girl come in the other day with a handful of pills, and she didn't know how far along she is. She told the abortion pill provider she didn't know what her gestational age was, and so they said, well, we'll just give you 14 pills. Just take it till you bleed a lot. This is health. This is what they're doing. This is abortion in America today in everybody's neighborhood. And this is what Pre-Born exists to stop with the compassion of Christ.
Wow, that is a stunning admission from that provider, if you can call her that.
Yeah.
Friends, that this is the stuff we're countering by partnering with Pre-Born. By partnering with Pre-Born and providing ultrasounds, you're partnering in an effort to stop that level of pain and evil and harshness with the love of Jesus, with the love and the truth and the hope that is found only in him. 833-850-2229, 833-850-2229. And they're even in the digital space, talking to the women online, trying to help them. Wherever the hurting women are, Pre-Born is there trying to establish a beachhead saying, hey, there is hope. Come this way. We will find that hope with you. 833-850-2229, 833-850-2229, or go to thatkevinshow.com and click the banner at the top of the page, because that's where you can give your gift. Dan, the spiritual element, the spiritual side of this is never able to be divorced from what you're doing. The reason that people feel it's okay to do this to their baby, or they've been told it's okay to do this to their baby, is because there's a worldview that has told them things that are scientifically, but also morally just opposite of the way they are in reality. And the idea that truth leads to hope, which leads to then life, is really like what you guys set out to do with every person you come into contact with. Talk to us about how important the spiritual component of all of it is, and why Pre-Born put such an emphasis on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jesus said that know the truth and truth will set them free. They're under the deception and bondage of the pressure that they're under, the fact that they think it's a blob of cells when it's a baby with a heartbeat and fingerprint. And so when we show them the truth of their baby on ultrasound and talk to them about God's word and his plan for them, we had a couple come in the other day, and the husband was pushing the girl to abort, and so we had him come back to the counseling room. And as we talked with him, he admitted that he came from an abusive family and he had an anger problem himself, and he just didn't want to bring a child into that situation. And so in that next 45 minutes, we shared with him one that could heal his past hurt and help him with his future as a father.
All right. Friends, make that call, 833-850-2229, 833-850-2229, or go to thatkevinshow.com and click the baby's picture at the top of the page. Kevin McCullough coming right back.
Do you want to explore strange new worlds? Do you want to make a difference in our galaxy? Are you gay, bi, genderqueer, BIPOC, or extremely obese? Join Starfleet. Starfleet Academy is currently looking for candidates who meet our extremely low admission standards. Forget James T. Kirk and Jean-Luc Picard. Those guys are yesterday's news, and they're white. The Starfleet of today is built on the backs of neurodivergent lesbians, their very large backs. To qualify for Starfleet, you must meet our physical standards by being at least 300 pounds. You must have at least one, preferably more, handicap or mental illness. Wearing glasses is a plus, even though we eliminated blindness 700 years ago. They just make you look smart, okay? Not too bright? No problem. The Academy is looking for people with an IQ of 70 or less.
I think I swallowed my com badge.
Already?
Yeah.
But most of all, we're looking for people who hate straight white males, because Diversity is the future, and the future is Starfleet. Officer commission not guaranteed upon graduation. Financial aid is available unless you are white. Individual experiences may vary. Starfleet is an equal opportunity employer unless you are white. Obese cadets may not be small enough to fit through the holodeck doors. Also, we hate white people.
2, 3, somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from his votes for Damas.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Still to come. Erika Donald's the future First Lady of the state of Florida, stopping by on some education reform. And Jill Homan into the courtroom with the Trump suit. Sketch comedy from Diaper Diplomacy, the Babylon Bee, and the Holderness Family. Back in the spotlight, it's Mercy Me! And now from Times Square, where even the pizza rats understand journalism is something they do better than Don Lemon, here's Kevin!
Assignment Desk Weekend. I'm Kevin McCullough. Happy weekend, America. Washington is once again flirting with a government shutdown after Senator Lindsey Graham threatened to torch a deal if the House-backed repeal survives. Graham says, quote, "I won't forget this," which in Senate terms means he'll glare sternly, issue a press release, and then vote for it anyway sometime by Tuesday. In related news, a GOP lawmaker wants to block welfare recipients from sending money overseas, apparently discovering that food stamps were never intended to double as international wire transfers. Supporters say the bill is about accountability. Critics argue it's unfair to expect taxpayer money to stay with taxpayers. Everything really is bigger in Texas, especially income. Texas isn't just growing its economy, it's getting richer per resident, causing Californians to panic Google U-Haul. And how conservative is Austin really anyway? Hilary Clinton says recent events in Minneapolis show the moral rot in the heart of Trump's MAGA movement. Observers note this claim was made with zero self-awareness and maximum historical irony, while standing near the political graveyard of 2016. Don Lemon has tapped Hunter Biden's attorney to fight Trump-era DOJ charges, proving once again that in media circles, the best defense strategy is hiring someone who's already lost several high-profile cases. Amber Rose slammed Ariana Grande for telling Americans to skip work and to protest ICE, suggesting that most Americans can't afford to miss work just because a celebrity had a thought. Meanwhile, Sydney Sweeney refused to become Hollywood's political pawn amid MAGA Barbie labeling, choosing instead the radical position of just showing up to work. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough.
Here we go again.
You can come in, don't worry. Our proudest legacy will be that of peacemaker.
Peacemaker under the fire. Beautiful. Together, with like-minded leaders, we have a voice. Is it safe?
It is safe.
Everyone wants to know. So here it is. Hi, Mr. President. Congratulations.
Did you watch it?
I did not. Yeah, I will see it on the news.
Today is January 739th. This month is 104 months long with no concept of time. How long ago was Christmas? Or was it 26 years ago? You forgot what all your presents were. You honestly don't know. Is it possible that in 1 month you got COVID twice? And you've been on this diet. You forgot what carbs taste like. And you tried January, and it isn't any fun at all. Especially with Jason Kelsey doing shots out of a bowling ball. Today is January 739th. You went for a walk at 5 p.m., which was 10 o'clock at night. The walk was only around the block, but it lasted 7 weeks. When you started the walk, you were 48, and now you are 63. You thought you were done with jackets, and so you put them all away. And then a wind chill came to town, and it lasted 1,000 days. Well, at least there's one more football game. We've got the Super Bowl, but by the time it airs, we all will be 190 years old. Your New Year's resolutions have come and gone. I couldn't keep them 'cause this month is way too long. It probably seems like this song has lasted 40 weeks, but the actual runtime so far is about 1:53. 'Cause we're in a timeless vortex, it's a winter purgatory, and you can't remember anything from 2023. There's nothing to look forward to, or maybe Valentine's Day, but that's in February, which is 82 years away. But this month is basically the same as dial-up internet. Why isn't it February yet?
So serious. Imagined by Mercy Me, one of the most beloved songs of all time.
You inspired millions of people. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? You're just going to ride off into the sunset? No more struggles or pain? So how about you tell me what's really going on? All these years later, seems we find ourselves at the crossroads.
They say sometimes you win some.
The question is,
sometimes you lose some.
are we still headlining material?
You got another hit cooking?
This tour is your dream. It's our dream.
I'm Tim. I'm Bart's warm-up. This is my first tour, you know? It's my first tour, too.
When did accountant Bart show up?
I don't know, man. About the time I invited my diabetic kid along on this writer's block-inducing make-or-break tour. Worried I might break him.
Or he just might fix you.
I just want to write something that helps people. Through the pain we all go through, you will never understand what I'm going through. Gratitude, grief, finding a way to hold them both. God is in fire, and it is beautiful. This song needs you. Sometimes your dreams can rise from the ash.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin.
And we're back. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. Erika Donalds rejoins us, and Erika works with the America First Policy Institute, pushing economic freedom initiatives, raising awareness of what educational freedom really looks like in America. You've heard us talk about school choice. You've heard us talk about the underperformance of public schools. And Erika will also hopefully make a great first lady for the state of Florida. She will, if I have anything to do with it. And those of you listening in Florida, you know what you need to do there. Let me ask Erika Donalds about the idea that these governors are being asked in the calendar year of 2026 to opt in to this school choice plan, idea, program, the One Big Beautiful Bill initiative, all the stuff that's there. Of the governors that haven't, well, what's the scorecard of who has and who hasn't in terms of how many of the 50 states are involved?
Well, we have about 19 governors that have already opted in, including Colorado, which has a Democrat governor, the only one so far. But we're really hoping that Democrat governors will also opt in, because this does not take away from their education budget in their state. It actually adds education dollars into their state and allows parents to layer this on top of other existing school choice programs, even on top of public school, if a student needs additional services outside of the school day. So it's a win-win for every governor to opt in, but of course there are always political pressures, especially from the teachers union, not to allow for education freedom for our families.
Well, that's problematic because this shouldn't be a left-right issue. This should be a right-wrong issue, and I can imagine who some of the fiends are that aren't opting in yet. Gavin Newsom, Tim Walz, some of these guys. But what is their justification to their people as to why they're not?
Well, they believe that giving parents this funding will give them the option to opt out of the public school system. And in their minds, that means that it weakens the public school system in their state. I think you mentioned earlier the concern that many parents that have means or that have more information will leave the public schools, and that may leave public schools with the most difficult children. However, we see examples across the country, like in Miami-Dade County, for example, where 75% of students are in schools that are not their zone school because their parents are making that active choice. And that could mean magnet schools, charter schools that are also part of the public school system. So it's really not about leaving the public schools entirely, but just giving parents that ownership and that option. Now, Miami-Dade Public Schools is an A school district, one of the highest performing urban districts in the country. Now, I wonder why parents actually have ownership of the type of education their kids are getting.
But that's the secret sauce. Parents being in charge of education is really the solution on so many different levels, and it really does threaten the power base of of a machine politician. If you're elected by force and getting all the people to get in line and march your way, something like this is very threatening to them.
It is. It is a diversification of power, right? And that is what America has been founded on. More power to the individual, less power to the government. But teachers unions use the power of government, such as the Federal Department of Education, to have one central place to lobby to get their agenda across. So if parents have that power, millions of parents across our states and across our country, it makes it much harder for teachers unions and other influence groups to get their agenda through the school system to our kids. That's why they fight it so hard. It's not about the children and getting the best academic experience for them. It's really about the power of unions and other special interest groups, and especially politicians who want to hold that power and take it away from parents.
I think that's so important to be said, because if you listen to them talk about why the teachers unions, for example, need to be in place and why these choice options should not be given, they never talk about the kids. They never point to a place where when you didn't give people options or choices that the outcomes were better. They can't. It's not possible. And to go back to what we've talked about in previous times, that competition helps the public school get better. It doesn't keep underperforming kids at bay. It puts more emphasis on actually getting the job done. And Erika, during COVID, parents across this country had their eyes blasted open by how awful some of the educational options were that their kids were enduring. And then you had really corrupt things like the head of the teachers union helping to write COVID school policy. Like there was so much ick with all of that. And I think parents are just exhausted from trying to figure out what's best for their kids and trying to make sure that they have the right thing.
Well, we're turning a corner with that. I believe we're going to see a lot more accountability through transparency for parents across this country. As you mentioned, COVID kind of brought in more transparency where parents were able to see what their children are learning. Since then, they have been at school board meetings demanding more curriculum transparency, and we're seeing those laws across the country. I also think accountability in terms of academic performance is going to be much more transparent going forward with more AI in the school system, better technology so parents can see how their children are performing. And because of this free market and because more options will be available, schools are going to be competing on the academic performance, and they're going to want to be more transparent about that. And parents are going to start to demand that, just like we do for restaurants. We want to see ratings, we want to see pictures. We're going to see a lot more of that with schools as education freedom continues to take hold in our country.
Gourmet education, if you will.
That's right. Well, nothing less than what our parents and our children deserve. And it really is a national security issue and the civil rights issue of our time. We are going to win this fight for education freedom for every single family in this country. It's just a matter of time. And thankfully, with President Trump being our school choice president and passing the One Big Beautiful Bill with this federal tax credit scholarship program, it is going to happen for a lot of families in America.
You mentioned that this doesn't really launch in totality until January 1 of 27, but that means that there's work that needs to be done here in the rest of 26. What are the cycles, what benchmarks, what needs to be accomplished to be the most successful that it can by 1/1/27?
Well, that's why it's so urgent for governors to opt in early, and Treasury has made a form available. It takes 10 minutes for them to fill out, so that stakeholders, parents, schools, providers, scholarship granting organizations can all get ready for each one of those states to participate. We're going to have to let the public know that they can donate this $1,700 for dollar tax credit on their federal taxes next year. So we're getting that word out through marketing, getting these scholarship funding organizations set up to receive those donations on 1/1 and then to distribute them according to the Treasury rules, which haven't even been written yet. They have asked for proposals and for feedback from the industry. We have given that, and now they're working through that feedback to create the rules and the framework for this program. We all have really not a lot of time to get ready for this to launch in less than a year, and that's why we need the governors to do their part and opt in now.
It's really vital. Where can people go if they want to get involved and do more on the grassroots level?
Well, America First Policy Institute, as you know, is involved with expanding education opportunity across our country. Go to americafirstpolicy.com. Go to the education section. You'll see all of our work there, a roadmap for states, and lots of information about this particular scholarship, as well as other school choice programs and other civic education initiatives that we're doing there at America First Policy Institute. We really are the tip of the spear with this and help to pass this law and are helping to get it in place in a way that benefits families the most.
Yeah, Erika Donalds, appreciate all your labors. They're not in vain, and we are deeply, deeply grateful. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
You got it. Kevin McCullough coming right back. Don't go away. Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for all things related to the show. You know that every week we check in with the America First Policy Institute on a wide variety of issues, and my next guest is here to talk about something you may not have seen in the major headlines this week. Jill Homan is her name, and she rejoins us, multiple-time contributor here at That Kevin Show. Jill, it's good to see you again. The president is still working through some past issues, if you will, with bad behavior of some big companies. And every time I see someone now that's like, I'll see the president in court, I keep saying to myself, I don't know if I'd be so bold about this, because the president seems to consistently have some wins there. What happened in the JPMorgan versus Donald Trump and family suit that has been in the news.
Thanks for having me, and good to be with you. The president has filed suit against JPMorgan for what he describes as debanking. And so that is JPMorgan deep banking and taking banking privileges from him and his family. And interestingly, JPMorgan has said that while, and this is an official statement, while they don't close accounts for political or religious reasons, they did admit that they close accounts because they create legal or regulatory risk for the company. And so they're blaming the regulators for closing the president's accounts, but they are admitting to the fact that they did that. And the other interesting point is that they said that they regret having to do so, and they said they've been asking for this administration and previous administrations to change the rules that put them in this position. And so they are claiming to be a victim to the regulators, and we can talk more about that. But it is in their official statement. They do admit to closing the account.
To having done it. So I want to take people that are listening or watching back to where we were when this went down, because this was in the aftermath of January 6th. This was in the great blackout purge of anything related to Trump that all the social media companies tried to eviscerate. Amazon Web Services tried to take people offline that were in any way associated with what they perceived to be Trumpism. And this was the foray into the banking world that impacted not just, as you mentioned, Trump, but his family and I believe his corporations. Is that correct? Trump Inc. and all of the ancillaries. So what they basically were part of was this great kind of chokehold that the system tried to pull off on a private citizen.
You're exactly right. And it actually dates back to the first Biden at the early Biden administration term. And even before that, where they called it Operation Choke Point. And so it was the weaponization of the DOJ and also the FBI in going after conservative organizations, including religious organizations, to take away their banking privileges. And the way they did that is they weaponized the regulators. And so the regulators have extreme influence over those that they regulate. And what they have is they have this vague term that they call reputational risk. And they decided that there were certain industries that were inherently risky than other industries. And these regulators decided that, you know what, we're going to call them risky, and then we're going to let the banks know that these industries or these groups are risky, and wink, nod, if you continue to bank with them, then your ability to maintain or stay in operation bank may be threatened. And that was really the sequence of events, is you had leftist regulators working with the banks that deplatformed conservative groups, religious groups, and including the Trump family.
But what is so important to recognize here is what Trump said on the campaign trail so many times, and that is that they came after him, but really who they wanted to come after were the American people that believed like him, and he was just kind of in their way. But Jill, if they had not, if the Republicans had not come back and won in 24, this type of Big Brother state would be expanding, not on the decrease. We've seen a lot of people kind of say, "Oh, woe is me, mea culpa, I'm sorry," since Trump came back into office. But can you imagine how out of control vague regulations being interpreted by very partisan regulators would have had an impact on small businesses across the country?
You're exactly right. And we saw that under the Biden administration and what they did. And when Trump, it started under Obama, and then Trump sought about reversing it through the regulatory process. And then once Biden came in, to your point, he reversed course.
Jill Homan of the America First Policy Institute. Always appreciate your insights. Thank you for being here.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Stick around for more of That Kevin next. York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. ThatKevinShow.com for all things related to the show, including helping us save babies as we continue to here in the month of January in 2026. Just look for that little banner at the top of the page. There's this baby wrapped in a pink blanket and a blue blanket, and just cute as can be. Click on that banner. That's where you can go and give your gift. You can also dial 833-850-2229. 833-850-BABY is the number. Dan Steiner is the head of Pre-Born, and he's really been a visionary leader in the pro-life movement from the standpoint of, I think, doing one of the most effective jobs of all in terms of helping save babies' lives. Because what Pre-Born Ministry does is they meet women where they are, and they give them the information that they don't have. And then 8 times out of 10, that woman, even if she's been abortion-minded, coming into that experience, 8 to 9 times out of 10, she changes her mind and decides for life. Dan, welcome back to Kevin McCullough's microphone, this time with the TV involved as well. We're glad to have you. It's fun to get you back here.
Love your love for life, Kevin, over the years now.
Yeah. Well, we've helped a lot of women choose life. And I was thinking the other day, if you're up to 280 clinics nationwide now, what does that mean by way of how many babies got saved like last year, and how many women came to Christ, and all the things that you guys emphasize?
Yeah, these are things that are our impact and our critical measurements as for our success. As we're not about legislating, we're not about changing opinion, we're about saving lives. So we saw 81,941 babies saved last year. Many of those were in your town there in New York City. And even as important, maybe more so, Kevin, than that, we've seen over 10,000 women give their hearts to Jesus Christ. And so there's a worldview change, better decision-making change for them as well in that whole process.
Those two numbers just literally give me the chills. It's so exciting to see that that's the level of impact that we're having in what we're doing. And friends, if you haven't yet done so, a 10-pack of ultrasounds that will help save the lives of maybe up to 10 kids is $280, $28 an ultrasound. But these are given to the women that come. There's no charge for them, and what they are exposed to in that ultrasound, they have not been told about anywhere else. Here's the phone number, 833-850-2229. Please call that number. Dan, this started out of a passion that you had in your own life, your own walk. You just woke up one day and said, Lord, I feel like you're calling me to something. Talk about how Pre-Born came about.
Yeah, it wasn't my idea. It was the Lord's idea. I'd get up every morning between 4:30 and 6:30 to seek the Lord. And during one of those times, Kevin, I just really felt like, what can I do for you, Lord, because of what you've done for me and the horrors of Calvary and what he did, took the punishment that I deserve, and all of us, frankly. And I said, what can I do? And he showed me his broken heart over these babies. He sees every abortion, Kevin, and he sees every mother's heart's distress. And it breaks his heart because it says in Scripture in Psalm 139 that all of their days were planned for them when before there was yet any of them. And so God's plans being circumvented. The importance of preborn children to God cannot be overemphasized. We know that from the Advent season, Christmas that we just went through. God chose come to earth in the form of an unplanned pregnancy of a preborn baby. Putting an exclamation mark after the fact that these are people. And, is very close in Scripture and throughout Scripture to show, even in Jeremiah chapter 1, where it talks about how I've appointed you before you were born as a prophet to the nations. And so the 1 million babies that are killed in America, that's not making America particularly great again, by the way. Love Trump, love what he's doing, but we haven't done anything of significance in terms of actually stopping. It's increased over the last 2 years, about 80,000 every year. And online abortion is a horror. But anyway, so back to your question, that started on a journey as to what really saves lives, that I could alleviate God's pain and be an offering to him. And legislation's great, but we've been legislating and it's still legal in America, and still there's a million babies dying, and protest doesn't really stop abortions to the extent what does. Well, ultrasound does, reaching a woman, giving her what she needs, being there for her loving her into a wise decision. That's what makes a difference. And then coming behind her and beside her with cribs and car seats and baby clothes and doctor visits and maternity clothes and baby food. What does she need? Practical, loving compassion to put our money and our heart where our mouth is in this issue. And so that's how Pre-Born started. We were involved in a local Midwest clinic and figured out kind of a formula to really make saving babies work. And that's what we took nationally.
Well, and you've done that, as you said, here in New York. There were just a few years ago in which I think it came to your attention that there were 4 zip codes all right next to each other, pretty closely, actually, that were aborting more children than were being born in those zip codes in the New York City area. And there were 3 or 4 women that you guys recruited and from the community, and they came together and they said, let's start a clinic. They needed some help getting up off the ground. Eventually they were able to get an ultrasound machine, but in the early days that wasn't able to happen. And Dan, I want to talk about that for a second, because to give a woman $28 ultrasound at no cost to her is a blessing. But to have one of these brand new ultrasound machines that one of the clinics can have installed and use kind of on an endless basis going forward, this saves many more lives. And I know that every year there are a few people that have the ability to contribute one of these. Tell us how someone could contribute an ultrasound machine to the work of Pre-Born, and what type of situation would it be going into?
Yeah, well, so it's the secret weapon. It's the best tool in our toolbox in terms of saving babies, for sure. And these things last like for 10 years, Kevin. So every day, week in and month out, they're showing moms their best baby picture, the first baby picture of the little baby inside the womb floating around in the amniotic fluid like an astronaut. And that changes their hearts. And so $15,000 gives a basic machine. And Kevin, this is our 20th year celebration for Pre-Born. And so our desire in this year is to give every pregnancy clinic in America that needs a machine a new one.
Wow.
If the warranty's running out, if their machine is old, we want them to have the best equipment.
Here's the phone number, 833-850-2229, 833-850-BABY, 833-850-2229, or go to thatkevinshow.com and click the Pre-Born banner at the top of the page. Coming right back. Don't go away.